in literature, in writing, you can enter the interior world of the character, but you spend paragraphs and sentences saying where you are. In film, it's just the opposite. In one shot, you can say where you are, but it's much harder to enter the interior world of the character. Sure, you could do it with voiceover, but I'm talking about it through imagery. You know, how do you create the emotional context? Because to me, images are like music in the sense that it's a nonverbal form of communication, that you're communicating something about the psychology of the character, the emotion of the character, and the point of view of the storytelling. I kind of started here with Stephen Lighthill, and we met about 40 years ago in San Francisco. So my background is documentary. I started with the Maisel brothers. I ran their office. And so for me, I'm always interested in reality-based stories. But the way I approached it is the way I approached any film, is from how is this room lit that's specific or unique to what this space is. And so for me, that's always a starting point, is to look at where I am and how the room is situated to doors, windows, the existing light. And then how do I implement what I do to capture that or to manipulate that, but use that as a reference. And so for me, maybe what people respond to in this film is that there's an authenticity. What I like to think about images, I like to think, do you create a psychological or a poetic authenticity to the image? It isn't like to come up with the coolest shot, you know, it's like try to find what makes that story unique in itself and then explore the visual language that could portray that story. It became an opera about an opera singer and about her life. It was more than just a biopic in that sense, because it had all the thematics of what opera deal with, you know, in the sense of remorse and revenge and loss and unrequited love. And all these aspects became part of who she was. And she even said, Maria Callas said, you know, the stage is my mind and my soul is the opera. And she lived that life like what she performed. And so I wanted the feeling that something was invading her world. And yes, I had the daylight coming in, but the green was like a color that generally people don't think is very flattering to flesh tone. And they see it as kind of an intrusion or abrasive. So that was why I started to use green, because one, I thought about when I was living in Paris in the 70s that there was a green neon light out outside the window. But also I thought it worked psychologically to her, that you felt the exterior world entering her, you know, her, what she's fleeing, you know, somehow. And so it started to follow me around the film in a weird way. Like the corridor had green. And then the art director had painted the foyer like a pastel green. And it started like, I started to find green in other areas, so I just kept going with it. I wanted to give the experience of how you would view an opera, basically. So the camera and this is something that came really from the way Pablo wanted to shoot the film, is that it's this moving proscenium, this moving stage, basically, the way you observe her or the way the camera moves with her through the space. So it's the way you in the audience in an opera would view an opera. Operas are not representational. They're a heightened reality. What's important is the emotions that the imagery and the sound and the music create. And so that's what I thought I could do with her world, is create kind of, the sets were like over the top, you know, like the bed and everything, is like create a world that she lives in. She lives in her own opera, basically. She lives in this heightened reality.